Welcome to your introduction to augmentative and alternative communication. But because that's quite a mouthful, we usually just call it AAC. So take a look in your workbook and you're going to see some different options for looking at what AAC actually is. AAC is usually defined as a communication modality that either replaces or supplements verbal speech for our children who either have no speech, minimal speech, or they might have quite a bit of speech, but there's just a lot of communication breakdowns between them and their communication partner. There's different types of AAC, but what we're going to be focusing on here is called aided AAC, and that means it is something that is outside of one's body to help them communicate. So unaided would be things like sign language. Aided is when there's an actual tool to help a child or an adult communicate better. The goal of AAC is to be able to communicate whatever I want, to whomever I want, wherever I want, and whenever I want to do so. So in order to do that, I need one or multiple of the following aided AAC tools. So a HighTech AAC is something that is non-electronic. So examples of that might include a communication board, a communication book, an alphabet, right? An alphabet page. Often HighTech is accessed through touching or through eye gaze, depending on the skills of the AAC user. Another type of AAC is called MidTech, and these are the things that are typically battery operated. So I don't have an example right here, but it might be I press a button to say one word, help, or a button to say a whole phrase, I have something to say. It also could include some MidTech devices that maybe have between 4 and 20 buttons to push. But when you push the button, it has to be a pre-recorded message. Someone has to go in and record the message, and it doesn't take you anywhere. It just says the one particular message that's been pre-programmed in. These are awesome tools to have hanging around your student at all times. My goal would be for every student, especially a student that might be in a wheelchair that has some difficulty with mobility, to have access to a button that says, I have something to say. And that way, even if their system, their other AAC system is maybe a little bit out of reach, which we don't want, but let's just suppose it is, then their communication partner knows, oh, I better help this student by providing them with their system or figuring out what they want to look at for eye gaze, etc. And then we have our high-tech devices. These are what people often think of when they can think of AAC. These are typically computer-based, and they allow your AAC user to generate any message. So here's an example. A lot of them are on tablets, not all, but a lot. An example, this happens to be Touch Chat with word power. So this is a popular one. Some other ones, another very popular one is LAMP, Words for Life. And here's one that is a very simple one. This just has 4. This is on Sounding Board, but you get the idea. There are many ways to access it. But something that's unique about most HighTech is the ability to go from one word. So I went eat, and then it automatically changed into other words. So I can open up folders. So I can go up here, I can go to social, and it's going to give me a bunch of social messages. So it automatically opens a folder in order to get somewhere else. Not all HighTech does that, but many of them do, and that's definitely not something that you can do with HighTech or MidTech aided communication. So let's go over some of these HighTech, some of their advantages. HighTech is typically very easy to transport because it's just a page or a book. It can be used in wet or messy environments. LightTech is my go-to for the bathroom, for taking a bath, for the swimming pool, for the beach, right? Places that you're like, yeah, we really need to be careful here. Sometimes the lunchroom too. LightTech isn't going to break down, right? And even if a student rips it apart because it's paper-based sometimes, it can just be reprinted, right? It's not super expensive to make for the most part. There are some disadvantages though, like LightTech really usually has very limited vocabulary. There are a few LightTech systems that have very big vocabularies, but these are found in very thick books that are harder to transport. And LightTech, just by nature, does not have voice output. You rely on someone seeing your message and possibly a communication partner verbalizing what you're pointing to. It's really useful for limited choice making, like if you have, 4 possible snack choices, what do you want for snack? These are the only choices we have today. I know you would prefer something else that's not available, but this is all we have today. They're also great for like visual schedules, for knowing what's going to happen next during the day. They're useful for communicating a limited number of things and in multiple environments, like I gave examples of before. So take a few moments, work with your team or other people around you, and talk about what type of LightTech systems do you have within your classroom, and what do you feel like would be really useful for your students? Okay, ready? We're going to move on to MidTech. MidTech devices are typically, but not always, less expensive than HighTech. They are also typically made to be durable. They can't withstand everything, but I definitely have had some of these devices withstand multiple, chucking across the room. There's really no computer chips to go awry. Like, people aren't very intimidated by these MidTech in the same way that they might be by like a tablet. They are usually pretty quick to program once you get the hang of it, and most of them will have directions on the back of how to program it. And they're great for using peers' voices. They're fabulous if you want to get a peer to say a message or a sibling to say a message. They're really good for that. Or noises, right? You can make silly noises in there. One of my favorites is a noise/voice, and it's uh-oh. I love using uh-oh with students while we're reading a book or during an activity, because it just engages them and helps them to communicate within that activity. So some of the things that I like to use MidTech for are participating in routines. Hi, how are you? Some of them will let you press multiple times like that. Knock jokes. What did the dog say to the goat? Right? And then the person says something, and then they can press it again and have the answer depending on which MidTech you're using. They're great for social interactions, getting attention. I have something to say. That alone is so powerful if we can allow our students to have that and have the auditory output of it as well, so that people around them know that this kiddo has something to say. They're also great for giving a single message, story, or sentence. For some of them, you can program them for, like a minute or two, so you can use them to tell a quick story and then move on to another part of the building and tell someone else the exact same story. The problem is you're stuck with one story, right? So that is one of the disadvantages of the MidTech. Okay, HighTech. HighTech are typically dynamic systems that can switch to new vocabulary very easily. A good, robust HighTech system, which we will talk about later, it can have thousands of words programmed into it. Now, sometimes we decide that the student, for access reasons, just can't, get to all those words yet, but they can grow into those words later. Some HighTech systems have predictive capability, which means that after you press the button eat, it goes automatically to the food choices. It can predict that you are going to use a food word next, which makes communication a little bit faster for those students who have trouble with, just trying to think about and process what they're going to say next. And all of these HighTech are somehow computer or tablet based. So you do need to have some understanding of how a tablet works or how a computer works. HighTech systems are really useful for generating novel messages, not a message that somebody else has already thought of, whatever it is they want to say. They're also great for communicating about many topics, not just a limited few. And then HighTech is great because most of them have some kind of voice output, so the people around them can hear what they have to say without looking over their shoulder the whole time. And it also allows others around them who maybe don't know how to read to be able to communicate with them as well. Okay, I said we're going to talk about robust AAC system. A robust AAC system allows an individual to communicate about anything. It includes, and we're going to go over what these words mean, core vocabulary, fringe vocabulary, and an alphabet for everything else that isn't in the core and fringe vocabulary. Please note that many individuals who use AAC have to have some combination of light, mid, and high tech to really make it a robust system. And that's okay. Matter of fact, that's encouraged. We communicate in more than one way, right? If something happened and I got a sore throat and I couldn't communicate with you via my voice, I would have other ways to communicate with you. Let's start with core words. These are the all-day, everyday words. They're often things like verbs and pronouns and some early prepositions. They typically develop in early in language, like, preschool-ish type age. And these words really should be powerful and meaningful. These are the words that if your AAC user had no other words, they could still get across to you some really important information. So some common core words that are on a lot of different systems are eat, or play, or like, or stop. It's interesting to note that there have been a lot of different studies over the years about what a core word is, and there's no overall consensus. Some people say that it's the earliest words that are acquired by your typically developing children. Some people say, no, it's the earliest words acquired by your children who have a speech and language delay. Other people say it's the most frequently used words by your typically developing or language delayed students. It also is really important to note that core words are not the same between languages. In the language that I grew up with, I might have a core word of like, whereas in a different language, maybe they don't use the word like very often, and there's a different word that is used on a very frequent basis throughout the day. Dialect is the same. Just because my dialect happens to use a certain word all day, every day, does not mean that every dialect of English uses that same word. Unfortunately, unless you're creating a brand new and unique system for your student, you probably are going to be kind of stuck with the core words that they've already given you. If you're designing something from scratch on like a HighTech system, then go for it. Find out what are the most important words in that child's all day, everyday vocabulary. Fringe words. Fringe words are really important, but they're typically the words that we don't use all day long. So these might be category words that are context dependent. Like in the example here, you can see clothes, right? So what are the clothes that this student needs to be able to wear during the school day? Chances are you're not talking about clothes all day long. So the student doesn't necessarily need access to those words all day long, but in certain contexts, it's really important. A really, really critical part of fringe words is the words that are really important to that individual. So if your student has a love of all things Pokemon, you better believe Pokemon better be on their fringe words so that they can talk about it when they are feeling like it. You want to also make sure that your student's name, their age, and any other important information is on their communication system so that they can talk to others about that as well. Now, something that they say in typical language development is that the earliest words that most children learn are the ones that evoke emotion. So a lot of times kids are learning like mama, dada, or doggy very early in life because each of those words evokes a strong feeling. Other words that develop early for some kids are words like hot because someone yelled it when they were about to touch something hot. So it evoked a big emotion in them. It might have been a scared emotion, but it was an emotion. So make sure that you're including in your students' fringe words things that evoke emotion and make them have big feelings. Hopefully, good big feelings, but there's lots of big feelings, right? We want our students to be able to communicate about any of those. Okay, and remember the third part of a robust AAC system is access to the alphabet. We need to make sure, even if our students are not yet able to spell words or read, that they are always being exposed to the alphabet and other people are showing them the words. And there's two big reasons. The first is that, of course, it's going to increase literacy skills if they have access to the alphabet all day long. The second is that as your child gets older, they're going to quickly realize not every word in the English language is in even the best of systems. We want to make sure that our students are learning how to spell those words that are critical for them. You probably have met a student at some point that you're like, they can't read, and yet if you stick them in front of a computer, they can type their very favorite thing. I had one student who was super into Thomas the Tank Engine. This was years ago. And we were like, oh no, he doesn't know how to read. And, I don't think he knows his letters and things like that. But when he got free time on the computer, he not only found YouTube, he typed in there, Thomas the Tank Engine, and started watching videos about Thomas. So, just know that your kids can do a lot of things that you might not have expected. And if they can't, then we need to teach them how to do those things. It's critical. Okay, let's go over just a few myths about AAC that are still being perpetuated, although luckily most people are starting to see that these are in fact myths. The first myth is that AAC prevents people from learning to talk. But the research has actually shown that AAC helps, or at the very worst, does not hinder verbal speech. Matter of fact, I've had multiple students that when they start hearing the words on their device, start practicing it and copying it, and then using more verbal speech than they had been previously. Myth number 2 is that only people who have no speech should use AAC. And this is not true either. As a matter of fact, people with any strong, big difficulties getting their message across can use AAC. This includes not only kids who cannot speak, but maybe kids who have a pretty profound articulation disorder, and so other people just aren't understanding what they have to say. Or maybe kids who have a lot of verbal gestalts and are able to use a lot of just very succinct phrases, but still are having trouble getting their message across. Myth number 3, young children should not use AAC because we want to give them time to develop their verbal speech. This is also not true. Please see myth number 1. A lot of times AAC is going to help these kids to actually learn verbal speech. And if it doesn't help them, then we know that we've provided them with access to the tools right from early in life. We know that language has such a huge impact on our cognitive development, and cognitive development has such a huge impact on our language. We want to be able to give these kids the tools that they need to be successful as early as possible. Myth number 4, AAC should be the last resort in speech therapy. And this isn't true either. In fact, AAC can be started on day 1 of speech therapy if it's determined by the speech pathologist and the family and the whole educational team that this kiddo is going to need more support than what they can currently do with their verbal speech. Myth number 5, children need to master picture communication before they try HighTech AAC. This simply is not true. Matter of fact, if you took one of your systems and started covering over the letters, the alphabet letters, and you looked at those same symbols, chances are you wouldn't know what those were about either. So much of AAC, for at least robust communication systems, is the placement and the motor memory. Kids learn very quickly that if I want this particular thing, I'm going to touch in the lower right corner. The same way that you probably have learned on your phone that if you want to get to a certain app, you don't even have to look, right? You go swipe, swipe, press. And also the same as when we're typing. I don't look at the keyboard when I'm typing. I have learned where certain things are. So even if you changed my keyboard to, Arabic letters, I still would be able to type you a message as long as it was coming out in English once it got onto the screen. So keep in mind, pictures are not the most important part of an AAC system. And there are some AAC users who are blind. They don't use the pictures at all, but they learn where they are on a grid type setting. Finally, myth number 6. And this actually is completely related to myth number 5. Only individuals who can discriminate pictures can use AAC. Nope. We got our motor memory moving there for a lot of AAC systems. You don't necessarily have to be able to discriminate pictures, which is why so many people are like, oh, we need to start with picture exchange. Well, there's some value to picture exchange as one form of HighTech communication, but it is not a prerequisite to getting up to our HighTech systems.